So, yeah, thank you guys so much for joining this year's Wisdom Keeper Summit. We're so excited to get started. We're just gonna get right into it. This next 2 hours is gonna fly by so quickly. So I want to honor everyone's time, and we're just gonna start with a very simple opening practice to start to just enter this container together in a very heart-centered and calm way. So if you'd like to gently close your eyes, and we're gonna start to just take a few deep breaths, sending our awareness to our bodies, to our breath, starting to make any gentle movements you may need to get comfortable. And we'll just pause here to receive the sounds of Wisdom Keepers, a song that was brought in specifically for the summit this year. And I feel like this will help us feel into the energy. Continuing to deepen your breath here. Sending your awareness to your belly, your heart, the center of your head. We'll start here together by creating what I call a healing vortex, or a healing container for us to be in today. And we do this in order to open ourselves up to any healing and guidance that's here available for us today in this space. And we do this also because all of the work that we do in this life benefits all those around us across time and space, because we are quantumly connected. So we'll begin by inviting the benevolent spiritual traditions that have guided us in this life, the land, the water, the fire, the air, that has nourished and taught us, the animal spirits, the plant spirits, our higher selves, our spiritual team. our spiritual team being our sacred entourage, our ancestral line, the celestial and the rooted, the lunar and the solar, the temples and the temple keepers, the land and the land stewards, the dimensions and the threads, the macrocosms and the micro. We thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Sacred Mystery, for bringing us together in this way, for helping us remember who we are. Thank you, Mother Earth. Thank you to those we may have hurt and those lessons we've had to learn along the way. May we find more ways to forgive ourselves and others and accept the things we cannot control. We say this because we believe it's true. We say this for those who haven't been able to before. We are and always will be victorious. I'll pause here in case there are any benevolent intentions, guides, symbols that you would like to weave into our vortex today. You can mentally or out loud say their names. We'll make the intention here that anything or anyone that we invited into our vortex today must disengage and go back to wherever they came from, wherever their home is at the end of our time today. Wherever the divine has placed them, may we meet again if it's highest and best. And so it is. You can gently start to come back to your physical space, back into the room. Before you meet back to your computer, take a second to look around the room, finding safety and security within your space, giving gratitude for all that it holds, giving gratitude for this current moment, before coming back into the space and meeting the gaze of your virtual friends here. So thank you guys so much for being here. It's been such a beautiful process to create this summit with all of our beautiful wisdom keepers. To give a little bit of a linear format today, I'm going to flow through a short intro on wisdom keepers and our guests today. Then we'll go into our roundtable and we'll end with audience questions. So if there are any questions that come up, or if you'd like to dive deeper into anything, just please let us know towards the end. But yeah, to begin, Wisdom Keepers for me is like a beautiful collection of tales, kind of like a book of various chapters from the medicine people within our communities, and really how their lives have changed and been affected by the medicine that they carry within them. Many of us are, born with our ancestral gifts. Many of us have our magic offline for whatever reason. So what happens many times is that we go through a series of initiations or awakenings in order to embody our divine mission and our purpose. And, this process of surrendering old parts of ourselves or clearing things that are keeping us from, embodying our truer or higher version of ourselves, A lot of the time, we kind of call that the hero's journey, the journey that we must go on in order to be the leaders and the stewards of this new template or paradigm that wants to come to the planet, as we're always evolving and changing every moment. And I kind of see this as like a new way of living that's kind of coming in, kind of organizing our systems in a different way that really prioritizes the liberation of all beings on the planet, meaning being able to live sovereignly in relation with the earth and the things that really nourish us, like the plants and the animals and the land and community, really having a reciprocal relationship with these things and these beings. And I think this is what the world is waking up to now, as we see a lot of old structures and systems crumbling that are, really prioritizing those of privilege and power. So through today's talk, we are able to travel back to the past, share what we learned in order to find a way forward together, and show each other that our stories matter. So may today be a catalyst for our journeys in a way. I hope this conversation blesses us all in so many ways, and all those that are, connected to us. And may it continue to help us build the world we'd like to participate in. So, this process of Wisdom Keepers has been like a 7-week process for our Wisdom Keepers. For me, it's been like a 10-year hero's journey to meeting everyone throughout my travels. But I'm just here to set the stage and amplify all of my favorite people. And through that, I feel like, yes, I share my own story. But I feel like there's so much work and preparation that has been put into this energetically, physically. Our spiritual teams have been dropping wisdom codes that are highest and best for us to share, really curating this on an energetic level. And we're just really excited to get started. So thank you for investing in this work. Today we are blessed to have Riona and Eliana with us. Ooh, besties. These two beautiful beings are both like super close friends of mine that also do divination work like me. I've collaborated with them. I've held classes with both of them. I've been their student. I've been their teacher. We've held each other through hard times, and I just love them so much. They are two of the main characters in my story, in my book, and I definitely wouldn't be who I am today without them. So thank you for being here and answering the call. So I love to give a little bit of an intro about them before we get started, and they can chime in to help me fill in any gaps. So I'll start with Riona. Riona is a queer healer, an artist, a spiritual teacher who guides psychic and somatic work to support us all in remembering our spiritual essence, our spiritual purpose. And she really has achieved this through working with the ancestral gifts within her and through the guidance of her teachers. In my perspective, I believe her mission is to be an integrous bridge between earth and sky in order to help others integrate their spiritual experiences as humans on the planet. She has supported people all around the world. She's a fucking badass. And she's done this through her mystery school, her one-on-one sessions, her ceremonies. And really, my favorite thing about Riona is her ability to listen and be quiet and also be really, really consistent with her visions. I'm always inspired by the way that she navigates her life and how she lets her art take center stage at all times. So, Riona, anything you'd like to add? Allow your voice to be heard.
Oh, thank you so much, Horace. Yeah, that's definitely like the high level of where I am. And as Horus has said, like we all have this hero's journey to arrive where we are. And you also spoke about, our ancestral connection being such an anchor and such a root for us to even come in contact with these gifts. So I want to honor my ancestors. My mom is actually on this call right now, a part of this session, which feels so special because she's been one of my biggest supports through everything in life. And to really honor just where I come from. I grew up in Baltimore in the United States, and I've traveled all over the world, and all over the US to land here in Austin, Texas. So my birth name is Megan Marie Armstrong. But through that hero's journey, I remembered and reclaimed Riona, which is the medicine woman, the healer, the spiritual teacher. So never severing myself from who I've been, but really a culmination of all that I am. And it's important to speak all of those names and honor all of those people and my ancestors and my family who have really helped me rise to be here. So thank you all so much. I'm so excited for today. Thank you.
Yay! Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm gonna move to Eliana. Eliana is also a badass teacher, a seer, a wellness weaver who helps spiritual practitioners ground their creative energy, their visions, and inspirations into living, tangible offerings. Just chef's kiss to Eliana because she really knows how to work with the creative energy and to really help and guide people on their businesses. She creates a lot of really unique experiences that support all of the magical beings within her community to connect with their personal medicine, discover their soul's calling, and really just trust their individual path of magic making and magic weaving. Within her business, Wellness Weaver, she blends her Jewish ancestral codes and masters in health with studies of mysticism, astrology, human design, medicine journeys, singing, prayer, energy, dance, oracular play. She does it all. And for me, my favorite thing about Eliana is the way that she delivers wisdom. At times when I'm in her classes, I think, how does she know? How does she know? How does she know? How does she know all this stuff that's happening in my specific life? And it's just very uncanny at times, and it reminds me of the beauty of this work, of medicine work, of spirituality, of sometimes people or a loved one just shining a mirror in front of you and helping you see yourself in a different way. The way that she crafts her words are so beautiful, and her containers are super intentional. And really, she's one of the main reasons why Wisdom Keepers exists. So, thank you so much. Eliana, anything you want to add?
Wow, thank you. That was such a beautiful introduction. It's always so helpful for me to get to hear from a student and a friend and a co-creator just how the medicine lands. It's often hard for me to fully get it and grasp it. So, yeah, I'm just so honored to be here. I was looking at the astrology for today before we all entered, and Mercury is cruising right over my north node. So the planet of communication is kind of directing the focus of how I'm speaking about and talking about destiny and what my soul came here to do in this lifetime and how I'm here to play. And this truly is like the crux of the magic for me is gathering with people online. I think this technology is the future embodied, helping us to connect from all around the world and to gather in this way. I feel like from a sensitive soul that grew up with a lot of autoimmune conditions and things that didn't allow me to be around people physically, getting to meet and teach and weave online is like it gave me so much access to the world. So, like fast forwarding to now, getting to be with all of us and to hold this summit from all different places in the world. This is just like what my soul came alive for. And I'm just so happy to be here and so honored to share in this space with you all with Riona and Horus. I've just been really feeling the medicine dropping in and dripping in from this space and our conversations and what we're collaborating on today. So, yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay! It's a party. It feels like a party to me. It feels like such a big celebration for all of us in our journeys, and how far we've come. It's kind of like we've gotten to a checkpoint in our lives, and now we can kind of look back and be like, wow, these are all the things I did. I'm a badass, but wow, I integrated a lot through this journey, and I'm excited that we're just kind of celebrating the stories and the tales of the leaders of our community, our teachers, those who have really supported us. So today we're going to be talking about divination, um, and how it helps all of us find clarity during times of change. If you don't know what divination is, or you haven't heard that word before, um, examples of tools people use for divination or intuitive reading are cards or bones, astrology, channeling, pendulums, reading palms, tea leaves, um, crystal balls, so much more. Divination has really brought us to moving to different states, traveling to different countries, and meeting a lot of the people in the summit. Divination really is kind of a compass, and it helps us see things from a multidimensional lens, or like a bird's eye view. Many people might see divination as psychics saying really broad statements that could relate to you. But being a divinator takes a lot of integrity, because we must balance ethically what messages we can share and which ones maybe we shouldn't. These messages from the divine really turn into real life experiences. So we have to be careful, um, and just be really specific with our words and the messages that we share with people, because they turn into real, tangible experiences for people. So it's a lot of responsibility. And we'll talk about that as we kind of flow through today, how you balance ethically delivering these messages. Um, so yeah, thank you guys for making it this far today. 30 minutes. Wow, that went by so fast. So we're gonna get started with our roundtable, and we'll just start to flow conversationally. And towards the end, we'll ask if anyone has any questions. You can unmute yourself or put it in the chat. But we're gonna start with Riona, and I would love to start at the beginning with both of these amazing guests. What did, like, why did you feel first called to work with your psychic gifts? Like, what was your awakening process like for you, Riona?
Yeah, Eliana, it's so beautiful hearing part of your story and just about autoimmune, and we talk about the hero's journey and how it is like years and years and years of things happening, and then it's like a walnut cracking open. It's like something really big happens. And it was over 10 years ago for me that I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which is a really intense autoimmune disease. And my prognosis was pretty bad, that the doctors were telling me, and that really just started it all for me, and really allowing my body to become one of my most like intimate relationships that I have, and really understanding my body as it was then, because it was completely different from what I was used to. 19 years of being really healthy, and then boom, like a huge illness happens. So it was a long time of really being in my body through different practices, mostly asana yoga, and it finally just got to this point where I was taking care of so much of my physical, and my mental, and some of the spiritual was starting to come in. But it was almost like my guides and my ancestors were like, no, like we really need her to go deeper. And I mean, on paper, I was doing it all, y'all. Like I was like the most healthy I possibly could be physically, but I ended up relapsing really, really bad. And I was in the hospital and I actually lost my vision in my left eye for a few months. And that had me go within myself so much deeper because it hurt to have my eyes open. So I would just be at my altar and I would have my eyes closed. And I just started to listen in a way that was so different than anything before because anything, even just looking, but also like listening to music or a podcast or a book almost felt like too stimulating. Like I needed to be in this kind of silence. And that's where it felt like I heard my guides for the first time. Like I heard their voice, their perspective, their guidance. And I was just like, this is really big. Like this is huge. But I didn't know what to do with that or where to go with that. And so Eliana used this word earlier, play. I started to play. Like I got my first Oracle deck. I started to play with cards. Was, out in California at this point, and California has this really expansive energy about it. So I just felt like I had this wide open field to explore. And I just kept being curious and I kept listening and I kept being quiet and really cultivating that space with myself and my guides so that a few years later, when I was inside of a mystery school, actually with Horus, I was attuned to the Akashic Records, which is a tool of divination, I would say, is kind of the most easy way to put it. I was attuned to the records and it was like a door like slammed open and it was just like, hey girl, and it was like all of this wisdom and all of this different way of listening started to pour through, and it was one of those things where it was like I can't ignore this anymore. I can't ignore not just what I'm hearing, but also what I'm feeling intuitively. And that's where the body piece comes in so strongly as well. It's something that Horus and Eliana and I have really connected on these last several weeks is, you know, having a psychic channel, connecting into your psychic gifts isn't about leaving your body. It's actually coming through your body. And your body is this vessel, is this tool to receive codes and messages to help guide you in life. We live in a world that now is so loud. It moves really fast. It's very distracting in a lot of ways. And to be connected into your intuition, your psychic gifts is your unique compass of how you're meant to live this life in a way that offers you true peace. And for me, I don't think that there is a better gift than having this sense of truer peace. And I know that that's something that will always keep coming more and more into form. It's just a way of remembrance, as us remembering ourselves outside of the physical, tangible body and mind, but really the soul and what the soul is here to do in this life. So, that's a little synopsis of how I got here and why I do what I do.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love the threads you're already bringing in about the psychic channel being related to the body and how important it is for the body to be here. Many times in the spiritual community, whether connected or what content or are not in that realm, but a lot of it sometimes is about leaving the body or not looking at the body or going to these cosmic realms and dimensions and stuff. But I think the way that we all, I believe in this whole entire summit, have been taught to interface with our spiritual gifts is a very embodied way, a way that really allows the body to be there and it needs to be there. I think that's where a lot of integrity and the ethics and making sure that what you're receiving is truthful because it's really coming from within you and not this kind of external source that may or may not be truthful or not. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you, Eliana. Anything you'd like to share about your awakening process, and what it feels like to work with your psychic gifts, what that process was like.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking about this, and the story that came to mind was from when I first experienced a death that wasn't natural, like a non grandparent passing over type of death in our family. And I remember, and my mom would always remind me that I said this, and it's like you don't remember a lot of things when you're a kid, but I really remember saying this and feeling this way that I didn't want to go to this house where this death had occurred because I could feel the spirit there, and I was afraid of the spirit. And I remember saying that, and I remember that was my excuse. But looking back on it now, I recognize that not only was I experiencing like the spirit of the person that had passed, but I was mostly experiencing the unprocessed grief and the pain of all of the adults in the room that was not talked about and not spoken out loud, but everyone was just kind of carrying around them like this bag of trauma. And it was that I was actually having so much resistance to. So I had a lot of psychic energy around me when I was young. It definitely flows through my father's side. My sister was drawing my aura when I was a kid and doing oracle card readings for me, and gave me my first deck when I was maybe like 11 years old. And I felt this connection. And I also remember very much having to shut this connection down because, like I said, it wasn't just the spiritual side of things, it was like all of the pain and the grief and the hardship of being connected with the spiritual realms that was showing up too. And so that got buried. And I feel like that got buried down in my gut. And that's where my autoimmune disease started to show up. There was like a sense of like processing too much, and also hiding like things that I didn't want to process, like down in places where I didn't have to look. And so the healing journey began. And I feel like though the journey like started in the physical, like Riona said, and started in like how I can do all of these things that the doctors are telling me, eventually it became a really spiritual journey. And the like prayers that I put up to God were like, show me the whole picture, like show me everything that needs to be done for this not to be something I put into remission with medication, but something that I understand where it came from. I understand why it's happening. And I also understand how to rehabilitate and heal that part of myself or part of my life so that this isn't something that I'll just have to live with forever, like doctors kept telling me. So it was like very much health driven experience, but then I would say like backing it was totally this relationship with death and the beyond and the emotions that come around being connected in this way. And then if I'm being honest, like the thing that blew the lid off was psychedelics, and having early 20s of experimenting with different types of plants and also man-made psychedelic experiences, going to places where it was safe to play and experience these realms and travel and come back and know that I was held and watched over and protected in the process. I realized in that space that though I could be communing with the same psychedelic as the person next to me, that I was having a very spiritual experience and they were having what they would call something different. They weren't experiencing it as spiritual. So I realized like we can be in the land of spirit, and the person right next to us can be having a totally different experience of that same thing than we are. So the line became then like, how do I translate this? How do I ground it? How do I bring these realms back? How do I bring the dimensions of the psychedelic playgrounds to people that will never commune with these spirits, or that don't have the capacity or the access or the safety to go on adventures into these realms, both psychedelically and also in kind of like the spiritual conversations that were being had inside of that. And I feel like for a long time it was just play and personal healing. And then when more people started to die and more, health experiences started to happen, I realized like, yes, this is a space for so much growth and potential and exploration to happen. And also it's like this is true medicine for the soul. And so much of our sickness and our current at least Western society is like we don't have soul in our bodies. We don't have spirit in our homes. And we're feeling that on a physical level, which means it's it's grounded down, to be at the point where now our physical reality is screaming at us to bring more of the space of spirit back into its home. So that's what's coming up for me. And that was kind of long-winded, but that's where I land with that question.
I love that so much, and I love where you ended, kind of like bringing spirit back to the homes, back to our relationships, back to everything, because it feels like as we go down this like hero's journey, it's like a ripple effect. Sometimes there is some deep healing that we do, and then I don't know, I would like look at my mom and be like, "Oh my gosh, there's my mom just went through so much healing out of nowhere or received something or uh won some like the lottery or she didn't win the lottery, but like a lot of her student loans just got like totally wiped out of nowhere. But these miracles that kind of happen within our ancestral line and then kind of our communities as well. And it's not to say that we're doing the work and they're not doing the work. It's just there are so many parallels happening, and when we think about, the different energies on the planet and whether you believe in astrology or not, if you don't believe in astrology, I mean, astrology is all about time. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, each of them is related to a planet. Um, but I'm like going on a tangent of astrology. But, it's just this idea that like really there are so many things weaving with us every single day. Reasons why we feel really amped up certain days we don't, and I think that's all part of the process of interconnectedness with all life around us. And I guess what I'm saying is like once we do some type of healing, sometimes that benefits those around us. And I love what you share about like learning how to heal yourself before you heal other people as well. It's kind of like the first um, contract that we get in the mail before we really go down our spiritual journey is like the contract of learning how to like heal ourselves. And then we go out in the world and we teach other people about healing ourselves in a sense. I'd love to kind of zero in a little bit more on divination and the process of being a divinator. And I'll start with Riona, but I'm curious about the divine started to teach you how to interpret certain messages. And maybe you can talk a little bit about how being in the body and being regulated is important to doing divination work.
Yeah, absolutely. When you asked that question, the first thing that actually came through was about being an artist. And I actually find that a lot of people who are psychic, very intuitive, are very creative. And there's this artistry, whether that's through sound, visual art, dance. Like there's this creativity. It's the kundalini. It's the creative energy that's already this life force that's flowing through you. And so before any of this work, like way way back when I was a child, like I was always an artist first. Like the way that I would be able to visualize and see things and create them and like bring them down like from like a vision I have in my like third eye or this creative vision, and then like bringing it down and like creating it into a painting or a drawing or whatever that was. um so I feel like that was the very very first language that came through of me just loving and trusting my creative energy and valuing it. And luckily, like I had the support of my friends and my family who, were always just loving me and the fact that I was an artist and that I would express it. Right. And so I would say that's a huge thing, is trusting your creativity, trusting your creative energy, how you receive it, and not just how you receive it, but how you express it. And, I think over time, the visual art for me, because that's how it originally came through, started to become about how art can come through the body through movement and sound. And so, the asana yoga practice was this very structured thing for me of just like creating a moving meditation, moving, breathing, being in sync, being in stillness. And then once I kind of mastered that structure, that's when like somatic experiencing started to come online. And it's just like, okay, how I'm experiencing, for example, this grief right now, like this really hard emotion that is like, I can't even put it into words. Like, there aren't any words for me to express this, but I know that there's something in my body wants to express it through a sound or through a movement. And that becomes an expression in itself. And so, allowing the somatic practice of expression also just started to almost like clear the channel so that I could receive even more clearly. Because a lot of the time, um, as sensitive beings, like those of us who are like, yeah, I can really feel my intuition, or like, yeah, I can feel these things that are around me. Like, I have so much like empathy within me and compassion. Like, you're a sensitive being, right? And so, a lot of the time when we're sensitive, it can almost become too much. Like, it's like, I can't feel all of this. But these tools and these practices we have give us the ability to feel and to move it and to express it, to then eventually bring us to this point of stillness and quiet and really being able to hear and receive in a very clean and, as Horace has mentioned, in an integrous way. Because there are so many different messages that we can be receiving. We're receiving information all the time, but it's like, what is the most integrous and clean message for you? Like, almost, what is the most purified message for you to receive? Um, and having a connection to your body to be able to sense that. Like, we all have physical senses. We see, we hear, we taste, we feel. Because of that, we all have clair senses. So you can see the unseen. You can feel something intuitively, even though mentally it doesn't make sense. Like, it didn't make sense for me to move to Austin. I had this beautiful life out in San Diego. I had this amazing community, but my intuition told me it's time to go. Like, it's time to go. It's time to go back to Austin to be with your family. And then I just had this major life experience happen in my family where it's like, as soon as it happened, I was like, I am meant to be here. Like, I am meant to be in Austin. And that's that level of peace that I was talking about earlier, is like, y'all, you can't replace that. That's like, I listened to my intuition, and now I'm just receiving this beautiful gift because my past self was brave enough to listen and also take the action to be here and live in this way and be held in this moment. Yeah.
Gorgeous. I love the way that you share like this message of really trusting your creative power, because I think a lot of times we think that if we can't draw or if we can't do music, we're not like a creative person. But we are creator beings. That's just a part of our essence. We're always creating our life. We're always, creating food for ourselves. We're always creating a nurturing environment for the people around us, always doing something. I mean, if there's one kind of positive thing about capitalism, it's that capitalism teaches us to like do, and it kind of helps us like strengthen that creative power. And I love what you shared about like being sensitive and the messages that we're getting. A lot of times they are too much. Sometimes you'll get a dream about, maybe a natural disaster, and maybe it'll happen right after. Um, and I think how do we balance that, and I love what you share. It's like our practices can help us balance. Our practices can help us figure out what is truthful, what is maybe not truthful, what comes from maybe a more fear-based ego self, and more of like this pure intentional, like, oh, my soul, my higher self is really coming through and giving me a message for a very, very specific reason. Um, yeah, I'm curious for you, Eliana, if there's anything there that comes up for you that you want to kind of stack on top of like a lasagna.
Yum. Get me some lasagna. Spiritual lasagna. Yeah, I don't know if there's much I could say to add to Riona, what Riona just said, because it was so beautiful and so eloquently spoken to. But I was thinking the same thing. Spirituality is an art, and art is interpretive. And so we can all receive messages in the same way and get totally different messages from them. You know, we can have spiritual experiences all together and all walk home with our own little individual nugget of what was supposed to be for us, a seed that we're supposed to plant in our own gardens and grow. So I really love to look at spirituality like that. And like you both kind of spoke to, I like envied the artists around me for so long. Like I envied my husband making tangible paintings and my roommate downstairs DJing and making songs. And I was like, I don't make anything physical. Like I'm just talking a spirit. Like I'm creating spiritual experiences, but no one's really taking something home with them to hang on their wall or to put, in their DJ booth. Um, and exploring that kind of disconnection for me was truly the pathway into my spirituality and how to channel what was trying to come through into things that could be really grounded and able for other people to look at, listen to, have conversations with, get their own fertilizer from. And the other thing I was thinking about too is that when the veil lifts, like you see everything on the other side. And I kind of alluded to this before, but it's like you don't just see the fun, frilly things that you want to see. Sometimes, like that's part of the practice. Like sometimes that's the chapter of life you're in. But oftentimes when you're kind of taking off the physical eyes of reality and looking at things through other sight, like you see a lot more than just what's been materialized or what you want to be seeing or want to be receiving. And you'll get messages that maybe you've been avoiding for a really, really long time. So there's something about being really regulated and in your system and having the capacity to be able to create space for. I don't think we need to hold space for all of these things, but create the space for these experiences to be happening, for there to be the reality that when you're connecting with the unseen, you can communicate with a lost loved one. But when you're connecting with the unseen, you're also connecting and communicating with like all of the grief and the pain from what that soul experienced leaving Earth too soon, or what all of the family that's left kind of integrating that experience of losing that soul too soon. That's all kind of right there. It's all on the bridge. That's all on the pathway. And so if you're not good with some of it, you're never really going to be able to get through all of it, and you'll not have a clear channel between what you're trying to communicate with, the relations you're trying to build on the other side, and what actually that means for you here and now. There'll be a lot of kind of road bumps and densities and things that will need to be processed in order to actually get that clear message that makes sense and that's applicable to you being a human being on earth. So yeah, I think it's important in so many levels, like not just for us, to be teaching and guiding and facilitating this for others, but also to make sure that we're not blowing ourselves out and causing more disease and more distress in the system. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I love how you put that. It's like really the work that we're doing, this very tangible work that we're doing with other medicine people, something that came through in one of our prep calls in the past few weeks is like this beautiful quote from Riona saying, "We're all just medicine people helping each other find our way home." And I love that because it really shows us that there really isn't a hierarchy. It's like there isn't like a teacher student kind of hierarchy type of thing. Like we're all medicine people. We all have creative power. We all have these abilities if we want to deepen into them. And really, the one of the main kind of bullet points or missions of being a spiritual teacher is what you shared, Eliana, is like really helping people hold these bigger truths or really expand their capacity. Because if there is, let's give the metaphor of like, if there is this hard truth coming in and it's this huge ball of light and it wants to come into your body, but it can't because you can't necessarily hold it or your system isn't regulated, it's probably not going to come in. And maybe it does come in, it might destabilize you. And, through that process, maybe you'll learn something or whatever it may be. Um, but I love that kind of sentiment that you shared of like really teaching others how to hold a little bit more because the other side is um, sometimes it's like sometimes spirit is like uh soft, sometimes it's hard, sometimes like the truth is really beautiful and sometimes the truth is really hard to digest. So I'm curious for you, Riona. A lot of times, what we deliver is very kind of intangible to our students. Just how Eliana was saying, we're putting this experience together, and people aren't really leaving with something. Um, Through your experience, how do you feel like you have helped other people see that there is like value in this work? Not saying like how good are you as a person that advertises your services? Because it's like we're kind of delivering an initiation to people. So I'm curious, like, if there's anything you want to talk about there about being a teacher that delivers initiation, and how do you even share that with people of like, hey, come down this road with me, it's gonna be hard but like it's gonna be worth it. Like, how has your experience been like as a teacher in navigating maybe those conversations, or if there's anything overall that comes up for you there?
Yeah, we actually it's bringing up some things that we talked about a few weeks ago around the people who come and sit with me, sit with Horus, sit with Eliana, sit with any, seer, oracle, medium, it's intentional. There is a sacred contract that is there. There is a sacred connection that is there. And so it's trusting in that. Like there's a lot of trust that happens in this work. It's mystery medicine, y'all. Like, so there is this level of trust that has to happen, that your unique medicine is for very specific people here on this earth. And if they are on their path and they are listening, they are going to cross your path and you're going to cross their path, and you're going to do this dance together. And I would say the people that come and sit with me are merely a reflection of me, in their own way, and I'm a reflection of them in their own way. We have similarities, we have certain threads that kind of weave us together, so that when I open up their Akashic records and they're asking guidance on specific things, should I go to school here, or should I enter this relationship, should I move there, like there's this language that we can speak to with one another where they can very easily receive it. And this also, it's not just about how somebody is reading and receiving, but also how the other person is also receiving and is open to receive. Because I have had readings where people come in and you can feel the nervousness and you can feel the clenching, right? And that's where we'll do some tools and practices where it's like, okay, like let's get in the body a little bit more, let's arrive into our breath, and that will help soften a lot of the time. But sometimes it doesn't, and that's because that person isn't letting go. They're not wanting to let go. They're not ready to listen, and that's okay. That's okay. um, they will arrive in a time where they will be ready to receive that. But I if someone is clenching like this, there's a part of my channel that's also doing that, and it's very hard to receive the information. So it is this truly a co-creative experience, truly a co-creative experience. Where Horace had just said this so beautifully. It's not this hierarchy of reader and someone who's being read for. It's we're sitting in a circle. We're sitting across the fire from one another, and we're both looking into the mirror together, and we're reading and we're receiving and we're open and we're ready to find out what is here. And to me, that's what it means to truly read in integrity, is to see whoever you're reading for, they're just as much of a teacher for you as you are for them. And I can't tell you how many readings, almost every single reading I've ever done, something has dropped in and I was like, I needed that. Like that was for me too. And you just see how beautifully connected we are, and how really it's that medicine. It's all guiding us home. So you know, I've seen people who've come in and have really received like the medicine from me. Like I've had one client, she came and she booked multiple readings with me over the course of a year, and we would check in every few months. And we got so deep in our readings that she was honest. She was like, Riona, I don't think I'm gonna come and read and receive for you anymore, because I feel so connected to my own intuition now. I feel so connected into the way I receive messages now that I don't think I need you to receive them for me and then for you to tell them to me and then for me to do the thing. Like I got it. And I'm like, we're done, baby. you know? So it does have that ability. If you're really wanting to tune into these gifts, like working with a reader who you love, who you trust, like it could really open that much for you. Um, so yeah, it's never about the reader telling you what to do. It's this co-creative journey that is continuing to elevate you on your path, is how I see it and how I experience it.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you. I love what you share around like um, when someone comes in for a reading, it's kind of like through your connection with the divine, you're kind of like the middleman in a way. And you're bringing in this frequency or this energy and you're sharing it with them. And then they're feeling it, they're tasting it, and they're like, okay, I'm seeing the way that you are making this recipe over and over again as we are sitting with each other over the next few months doing all of these readings. Now, this person kind of like internally feeling like some type of muscle memory. And they're like, okay, now I know how to energetically go to where Riona is going in my own way and find my own path with the divine. Because something that I love that Eliana shared in one of our last calls was it's not the tool, it's the tool being a intermediary to the divine. It's like, yes, I'm gonna pull cards, but the cards aren't giving me the message. The divine is giving me the message. And then we can kind of deepen into synchronicity and chance and, like destiny. And I feel like that is also a really big thing with divination, in terms of the randomness and sometimes creating a container of like, I'm totally trusting whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. And a lot of times when we surrender to the divine and surrender to these messages that need to come in for this person in this specific way, and we pull a card in terms of like, I'm just gonna trust whether the card is reversed or this or that. I'm just going to trust that the message coming in is exactly perfect. Something about that allowance and that surrender, it makes the reading really clear. It makes the message really clear and allows spirit to come in and kind of like, and maybe you guys can help me like communicate this a little bit better, but it's like the randomness and synchronicity of like um the card being pulled. Like why is it that when we pull a card, it's exactly what we need in that moment? Why is it when we go into the Akashic records and we ask a question for this person and receive a message for them, why do we receive it? You know, out of all of the things that we can receive, we receive a purple elephant. And then this person says, "Oh my gosh, the purple elephant from my childhood, this, that, and whatever." But it's like, how does that happen? This randomness, this this frequency that kind of comes in. I'm curious for you, Eliana, if there's anything there that comes up for you that you can help with clarifying kind of where I'm trying to get here.
I'll do my best. um I definitely like look at reality as like this just massive collective mind hive, like just this big computer. And it's like always trying to communicate with us in our code. It's always trying to send something down the pipeline that we can update the systems with. So I feel like I don't have like a super good answer to what you were saying, but let me riff on what was coming through to me when Riona was talking. I feel like a lot of the work that we're doing as divinators is like customer service. Like we're standing, checking you in, making sure you know your appointment time, making sure you're like where you need to be so that you can get into that room with spirit when spirit had its, when it had you scheduled into the session, and make sure that you're there to receive your appointment. And I worked customer service for massage therapists and healers for a very, very long time. So that's always kind of where I stood. And I'm like, that's still what we're doing as people that are connecting others with healing modalities, or connecting others with the images in the cards, or connecting others with the guidance, from their team or from their ancestors. Is we're just getting a time and place scheduled where the individual can drop in, they can listen, like Riona was saying, they can open themselves up to perceive reality from a multidimensional lens. They're usually listening with different senses. They're not just listening with their human ears, but they're kind of taking in information from a lot of different psychic inputs and outputs of their computer. And so they have an opportunity to hear messages or guidance that most likely they've already been working on in their intuition, or getting in their dreams, or just having senses for. But having the appointment set where you're sitting down and you have that conduit of divination, or conduit of a rune, or something on the other side that's showing you, like, yes, what's happening in your internal computer system. I don't know why computer system's coming up, but like, yes, that's going on inside. And because like this external reality is also like the output that your spirit is continuously giving the collective consciousness, like it's also happening out here too. And we need that as humans. Like we're individuated, we're in these fleshly bodies, like we're one with God, and at the same time, like we're having a unique individual experience where we're separated from this totality of energy. So part of the contract of being human is like, you're not just here to do it alone, you're not here to figure it out alone, you're not here to get the messages alone, you're actually here to listen to the directive, walk on the path, like meet those divine appointments, those divine contracts that you have on the way. Make sure you're exchanging the tools and informations that your soul's divined for you to connect with over your lifetime, so that you can keep kind of evolving the soul forward, and the life forward, and continue to move evolution and the energy that always wants to eternalize, that always wants to keep evolving and growing, creating and changing. I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much. I love where you're kind of stopping, where we're all kind of evolving together. And it's not like it's like an orchestra. It's like, yeah, I play the violin and then you do this and then I do this and I do this. It's not like yeah, I'm just gonna go on this journey by myself and I can evolve all by myself. And I think there is this important message of like really understanding that we are totally connected, that a lot of times in the collective happens, we feel kind of a impulse or a vibration or a ripple of that, you know. A lot of us want to be kind of disconnected from what is maybe happening all around the world or within the news or in these different parts of the world that our lineage isn't connected to. So people are like, why should I even care? You know, there's always destruction happening in the world, and it's just going to continue to happen. And I feel that that is sometimes a way that we protect ourselves, the way that we want to kind of shield ourselves and go into individuation or separation. And I think that's exactly the kind of narrative that the world and those in power want to deliver to us. And this um, idea of evolving together and being interwoven with each other is very decolonial, it's very future focused, and it sounds super simple, but when you really embody that value of walking through life hand in hand with all of those around you, things are really different. Things feel different. You don't feel like you have to do it alone anymore, that you can really reach out to someone that you care about, and that soul family will really help you get through it. So, thank you for that reminder, Eliana. Um, I'm curious if there are any things that you've really noticed about yourself or learned about yourself through being a divinator. Is there something about humanity or something about yourself that you've really understood in a deeper way of like, oh, by being a divinator and receiving these messages, it's actually affected me in this way and showed me my power in this, and has allowed me to build my confidence in XYZ. I'm curious for you, Riona, if there's anything there that comes up for you.
Yeah. Whew. That's a powerful question. I definitely feel so we've talked about, dis-ease in our conversation. And I definitely felt like one of the root causes of dis-ease for me was hardness and like just like going, like and like a sharpness almost. And I feel like this path has just softened me and softened me and softened me in a way through stillness and quiet and listening. And in that, I feel so much more powerful than I ever have. Like, I feel this like softness, but that has so much power because there's like knowing in it and there's wisdom, and it's like deep earth, and it's like the cosmos as well. And, especially in the last few months, it's been different for me as a divinator. My sister transitioned, and, it was like I was doing psychic work for a while before this happened to her, and now she's on the other side of the veil, and I'm it's almost like I'm relearning how to do this work, because it's very different when your guides have been, these kind of etheric beings. But then for someone so human to become an etheric being for you, who is your blood, I mean, she's my sister, um, is like a whole new experience. And it's taken me even deeper into softness, even deeper into stillness and listening and just being quiet. And there's something I'm still learning about this. It's like these are the only words that I can really describe it as, but I know there's something really powerful here. And I think this also just comes with spiritual maturity. In the beginning, there can be this, for me at least, and I've heard from a lot of people in my community and clients, there's almost this insatiable desire and drive to be on your path and understand your medicine and where am I going and what is this for and what is my purpose. But I would say in the last year, that has really slowed down. And I'm really moving so slow because I trust wherever this is taking me. And I know that the timing is going to happen when the timing happens. And that's just a lesson that is just learned over time, I think, is learned through experience. Um, And I remember saying this a while ago, earlier on my path, that like this is life for me. Like this isn't just, and I was actually talking to a friend about this yesterday, because spirituality has become mainstream. It's become trendy. And we're being tested a little bit right now, with who's here to really say, this is my life. This spiritual path is my life. And finding that differentiating factor, you know, of who is really stepping away from the trendiness and the mainstream and the, and how we can all choose and decide, it being a life path. And so that's what I'm learning right now. And that's what it's teaching me. And I'm definitely in the middle of the lesson. So that's all I can really say for it right now.
Yeah. And thank you for teaching us through reflecting your experience to us. You know, this beautiful power in the softness, the power in surrendering. And as a divinator, it's funny to kind of think about how for you, Riona, that can be hard to step back and just release, because a lot of times within our reading spaces, we do that. So it's kind of like sometimes the medicine that we embody and also the medicine that we move through life with can be still kind of like a work in progress. Like we're not perfect. This path isn't trendy. It's real. It's dark. You know, sometimes like a reading will be on point. Sometimes it quote unquote won't be. It's not that it's not. It's that it's maybe a timing thing, or maybe it's a co-creative container, so it's also about the other person as well. And it's not that things are good or things are a bad reading. It's just like sometimes the messages are really clear for the person, sometimes the messages want to be really poetic. And you know, the beautiful thing about readings is you can record them, and in the future you can listen to them again, and those, ooh, my ear is ringing so much. Those messages can be, they can kind of come back, and we can really dig deep into them and see, oh, now I understand why that person said it in this way. So I love that sometimes we go down this path and we're like, we don't really know what's happening. This feels wrong, but I'm still going to go down the path. And then we look back and it's like, it wasn't wrong. It was just new, and it was different, and it was real, and maybe it was a little bit darker, and that's okay, and that still deserves to be in the room as well. For you, Eliana, I'm curious if there's anything about yourself that has really been spotlighted as you being a defender.
Yeah, I could also feel when you asked this question to Riona just how big this question is. I feel like especially for both of us and the path that we've gone on. I feel like when you're called to medicine and you're called to the mystery, or the mystery calls to you, you don't always know like that this path requires initiation. And back in the day, that's how the mystery was kept secret. That's how the magic was protected, was that there were sets of initiations, spiritual initiations that you were presented with in order to train yourself, both in morality and also in power, how to hold power and how to channel it in a good way in order to be able to enter into these doorways and work with these types of medicines. And so for those of us here in modern day, it's like you're called onto the medicine path, you're called onto this mission, it's where you're meant to go. And the moment you start really truly walking it, you realize that your karma gets sped up. All of these like real life experiences happen that force you to look at things you never looked at, feel things you've never felt, process things you never thought you would have to process. And those are the kind of modern day self initiations that you have to go on. And so, similar to Riona, like one of the big initiations on the path for me was losing my mother, and that transition of, um, like Riona said, like working with these beings on the other side, receiving divine reflections, and suddenly someone that used to come to my classes, that would be sitting right here with us today, just like Riona's mom is, was now on the other side, and cheers, shout out to my mom because she's going to be with us today. She loves coming to gatherings like this and classes like this. This was like her milk and honey. But you have to then get to know these relations in a very new way, and how to meet them and greet them, and understand kind of what is your emotional energy around what's being shared here, what's your personal energy to process, and then also how this relation can be a huge stabilizing force and frequency for the work that you're doing. Um, my mom, it's Mercury retrograde, sorry, Mars retrograde right now. It's not Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde right now. And my mom passed away during a Mars retrograde. And I got a message, like intuition was like, go to your mom, like a couple weeks beforehand, go to your mom. Something's not right. Go to your mom. And it was the fires in Oregon that were like lining the roads back in 2020, that the day I was going to leave, these fires prevented me from getting on the road and going to see her. And so I had to sit home knowing that something felt wrong. And then though her death was unexpected, it wasn't like something was happening at this time that we knew of. She passed away a couple weeks later. And the last time I saw her was taking my class. Last time I saw her was doing this wheel of life breath that has you meditate on being full of your life source and being empty of it, and what it feels like to be breathing, what it feels like to not be breathing. And that was the last offering that I gave her. And then her death was from not being able to breathe. And it was the day after I had started a breathwork training. Like, you start on this path, and there you are, and there's everything you came into this life to work on, and everything that your soul wanted to experience. And some of it's beautiful and glorious, and some of it's grief ridden and painful, and within all of that is more of yourself, and more of who you are, and more of why you're here, and more of the mission. And so that's like the message I just kind of want to leave with that question is, like, it calls to you and you're initiated, and it calls to you and you're initiated. And every initiation, it changes you, and it changes your walk with the work, and it changes the way you wield medicine. And it's all such an important part of it. And then that's why people come to you for your particular brand of how you serve it and how you pour it. It's because you are not just pouring the tool, right? You're pouring also your life experience and how you walk through these flames, and then help guide other people through them too.
Whew. Mic drop moment. Let's just take a moment to receive all of that from Riona and Eliana. Thank you so much. Thank you for being open with your journey with losing loved ones, reaching your hand through the threshold of the unseen to communicate with them and be with them again, and how they are always with us, whether they are now our guides or etheric students in our offerings. So we thank them for being here with us and for also orchestrating this process. I love what you shared about this journey calling to you and initiating you, calling to you and initiating you over and over again. I'm curious for you, Riona, as you are kind of in the middle of this journey of being called and initiated, with the unfortunate loss of a loved one. How has and really you can share anything that you'd like here, but how has your process been, in the way that you relate to like your spiritual gifts now? Like, how has that changed, now that a loved one is a guide or on the other side, or really anything about this topic that you feel called to share?
Ah, it's so beautiful to hear, Eliana, your experience with your mom and how you received it before it happened. Um, I received it too from my sister Amy. Um, but it was calm, and I just heard every day for 2 weeks, Amy, just steady, calm. Um, and I think it was my way of my guides preparing me. Um, because Amy was taken from us in a very violent and tragic way. And that has been a lot to process, not just the grief, but the trauma. And what I've been able to tap into is that it's always here now. Like she's always here. The moment that I allowed myself to connect, it's like she's here all the time. I feel her. It's like she's breathing my own breath sometimes. Um, and I think that is a different way of experiencing, the spiritual realms that I don't think I could have ever understood unless I had this experience. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, y'all, like in the very beginning of it all, I wanted to turn it off. I was like, I can't do this. Not this one. I've had a lot of initiations. I don't want to, and I can't do this one. And I felt betrayed. I felt betrayed by my guides, my ancestor. I felt betrayed by the path. I felt like I did enough. I did enough, for the medicine and for the work. Um, and, I just, as much as it breaks my heart that it's like I knew, I heard, um, there's a peace that Amy has assured within me that she feels now and that she experiences. And it's, beautiful to see how this experience is awakening, the intuition and psychic gifts of all of my family. Like these gifts are very ancestral. So to hear about my other sister's dreams about her and the messages she's receiving, and the messages and the signs that we get from her all the time, it's just allowing life to actually be magical, like as dark and painful as it can be. Like this spiritual realm is all around us all the time. It's here always. And I would say that's the biggest gift that's really big to integrate, is after everything happened, I was literally living breath by breath, moment by moment. I couldn't plan, I couldn't see, I couldn't hear, I couldn't connect in that way. But I was like, I'm experiencing the pureness of the present moment that we hear these ancient sages talk about all the time. I was like, I'm in it, I'm in the pocket, like I'm experiencing that right now. Um, and there's just so much in that I know I'm just going to be integrating. And I'm giving myself the permission to move slow, giving myself permission to feel it and to be in my human experience, because I feel like it could be really easy to spiritually bypass a lot of this pain and this trauma. But I know, like, body first. I've like learned anything in my on my path is body first. So I'm allowing myself to stay in my body and just almost like it's almost like the initiations that you go through. They have similar threads in them, and you just it's like the same recipe that you are using, but in a different way. Um, and so yeah, I would say that's kind of where I am with it. And I'm just really trusting. I know that this is going to bring something so massive, so magical, so big, um, that I can't even predict it. I'm not even trying to. I'm just trusting and just allowing right now. Thank you for allowing me to share so much from my heart.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing and feeling safe and open to do so in this container. And I'm glad that it feels that way for both of you to share these deep truths and these things that might not feel super comfortable to share with others. So thank you for your openness with that. I love the idea of you in pocket right now. I'm so happy for you. They get to be in the pocket of the present moment, of living breath by breath. My partner did a Vipassana retreat last year where he meditated every day for 10 days in Joshua Tree. And I was doing some of the meditations alongside him while he was over there. And I feel like I also was able to feel that experience, just temporarily though, of being extremely present with everything around me. And it felt like as well I was in a pocket. I was like, I want to be here forever in a sense, because my mind feels really clear and I can really walk super slow and intentionally and feel the softness of the air around me and the words coming from people in a more truthful way or in a more maybe deeper way. So I'm glad that even though there is this moment of grief and of processing and of healing, that you at least feel like super kind of grounded and present and moving through like your own path in slowness. I think that's really important for us to kind of put a bookmark on, in a sense, of those times that sometimes these things happen. We feel like our whole life feels really chaotic and everything's going really fast and I don't know what to do. And I think sometimes when we come out from the other side and we're blessed to be in this pocket that you kind of talk about, it kind of allows us to kind of like breathe for a second and to be able to like take a pause. And I think that's like overall what life is sometimes, those moments of chaos and those moments of the breath being really slow and feeling the softness of the world around us. Yeah. I'm curious for you, Eliana, if there's anything within your own journey you want to share, or just anything in general to kind of add to this topic.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really special experience to be getting to receive someone who is walking so closely with death. Um, there's like a certain level of presence and skill that Riona is bringing to this conversation that like really brings me back to those times right after the losses and coming and being with people and being seen in your grief. Like, I know it was such a challenging thing for me, but I remember the first time, I'll always remember the first time I gathered back together with community and the people that were there and the level of presence that was in my body and the reflections that I got to receive through that transmission. And I just want to like give offerings to Riona and to Riona's mom on the call too, of just like bringing us close when you're like walking so close to the threshold is also, it's such an honor. And for anyone on this call, like bringing people close to you when you're walking this close to the threshold or when you're working with such deep levels of grief, like there is a level for the rest of us that allows us to access more, that allows us to expand even more into our humanity and into our bodies and to feel safer in the process, knowing that like horrible, tragic things can happen. And through that and on the other side of that, like there's still purpose to being alive and there's still reasons to being in a body. And that it's like a flame, that like we can follow and we can resource from. And it keeps reminding us, like, even in the underworld, even in the dark times, like, there's a reason that we're here and there's a reason we walk this way. And we do it for everybody that couldn't come. So, yeah, I think just in relation with this question, too, like, something that feels important for me to kind of leave here on the altar is as divinators and as people that are reading for others and doing Akashic records readings for people, like, we're not here to change the future, and us giving you a message is not going to change the future. And this work is not so that we can become the creators that think we have the ability to change the things that are on our path in front of us. What they are for is to prepare ourselves, to give us the capacity, like Riona said, to hear something, a message again and again and again, to strengthen that kind of spiritual spine around what that message might be, so that when the situation does occur, when that event does happen, you've already been meeting that moment. You've already been training yourself to be the person that you want to be for when those situations happen. So we don't call you into these readings to tell you we're going to give you something that's going to change the tragedies of your life. More so, I think the three of us can all attest to, like, we call you to the altar so that you're good with God, or whatever word you want to use there, so that you're speaking to spirit, so that you have the relations that you need, the tools that you need, the spiritual and physical community that you need, so that when life happens, as life happens, you can stand in your own 2 feet and meet that moment as you are, as the person that you want to be, um, as the person that you want to be in a moment of travesty for those you love and for those in your family. So that also kind of feels like this path has been such a good teacher of that for me, is like it can heal and it can mend and it can resource and it can support. And yet I'm still always, no matter how much work I do, no matter how many times I sit at this altar, no matter how many times I pull the same card over and over and over again, the more I integrate the message, the closer it just gets me to the event. The more I do the work, the closer it just gets me to the experience that it was training me for, to the communications that message was preparing my words to be able to understand and transmit and translate. So yeah, that's what I feel with that question.
I'm curious about something that you ended with what you just said about the message helping you get closer to the event. Could you share a little bit more about that, Eliana?
Yeah, I feel like the more I like ignore the vision, the more I kind of like keep putting it on the outside of my aura, the more the message wants to come in and I'm like, "Oh, I'll deal with you later." The more my system discombobulates to meet that moment, but the more I'm sitting with the message, I'm translating the message, I'm hearing it not just from the psychic realms, but also from like what my body is interpreting when I get that message, the fear that comes up inside of me when that vision or that concept is trying to really drop into my life. But when I integrate it, when I digest it, it's like that thing doesn't just kind of like hang around my aura. Like that thing shows up and it shows me what it is, and we get to have a good conversation. And it's like I picked up the phone instead of just letting it ring over and over and over again. And that ring eventually becomes a siren. It's like the alarms on our phone. It will just keep hitting you with that sound until you're ready to actually pick up the phone and listen. And once you do, it's like it's not as scary because you realize, like, you've been talking to this spirit through the celestial channels for months now, and now you're just getting to have, like, the physical conversation with the person or the experience in real life. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Thank you. It's just like I feel like just really deepening into that is really helpful because it kind of shows us that like listening to the messages that are coming in and understanding that they're sitting outside the aura or they're there, kind of like a repeating phone call. And a lot of the times, what you shared as divinators, what we're doing is like giving you the tools so that what you said, when life happens, you can stand on your own 2 feet, which I love. So, really, it's helping people open up to the messages that are already around them. A lot of times, we're not really giving you something that's new, we're just reminding you of what has been kind of around you. And sometimes it's hard for us to read ourselves, it's hard for us to see our own situation or our own life. But then when we allow a piece of our energy to kind of be seen by a divinator, in a sense, they can really look at our life on from a bird's eye view, in a sense, and see like, oh, I understand, like this message is coming through, and this is what destiny is kind of bringing you towards or wanting to show to you. And this whole idea of like the body and the spirit needing to be ready to be able to receive that. And sometimes, people aren't. And that's what having a customer service divinatory person being there is helpful for, to really help guide you through these hard truths that really sometimes are hard to receive if you know we aren't used to being in the process. So thank you guys so much. I'm gonna take a pause here as we have about 22 minutes. And if there are any questions that people have for our guests here or for me as well, feel free to throw them in the chat, or you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask us directly. So I'll just take a pause here. Well, as we wait for any questions to come in the chat, maybe you're writing them, um, I'd love to just ask maybe what this summit process has been like for both of you. Oh, we'll go back to my question. Let's go to Britt's question first. Oh, okay, not a question, but I have to hop off. So thank you for holding this space and sharing so vulnerably. Thank you, Britt, for joining. Boom says, thank you all for your open hearts. I'm curious how, with the state of the world, how your gifts of divination come more alive. What do you feel the ties between oppression, system collapse connects with divination and higher states of consciousness? Choose. Anyone feel called to go first? I can start. Oh, okay, I'll start. Um, yeah, I mean, I think at least for me, it's been like an interesting process. I have a friend of mine that also does a lot of channeling and is in Wisdom Keepers actually. And me and her were meeting during the last few months, and we were feeling kind of unsure about the world, a little scared, um, and not 100% sure what we should be doing as leaders in the spiritual world community. How do we help the people around us? How do we help the world? A lot of times, as guides, we feel like we have to have all of the sorrows of the world on our backs, and we feel like we need to do something because we have this magic or we have this power, even though everyone also has their own power and their own ability to make change. It felt like we wanted to meet and ask the Akashic Records or our own channels, what do I with this, or what's happening with this? And there was a good amount of information that came through, which was helpful. And I think some of that I did end up kind of sharing some of it online. But I feel like a lot of times, I think for me, it wants to be looked at, it wants to be addressed, these certain things in the world, but it's not necessarily, as what I'm learning, for everybody. You know, sometimes it's really just for me. So I think this, the state of the world and oppression and systemic collapse, like, I think within my own divination practice, it's been a lot more personal in how I navigate the world, how I really integrate what's happening around me, um, versus feeling like I want to be like this person that like shares all these prophecies of like, yeah, this natural disaster is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, because a lot of time people probably won't receive that super well, even if maybe it maybe will happen. Maybe I'm a psychic that has a lot of accuracy in predicting these kinds of things. But even though, like, we have to be careful and be ethical with the way that we're sharing information and not have people be super scared and move through so much fear in their life because of something they heard online. Um, oh, someone's coming in. But yeah, I think I just lost my train of thought, but I guess I'm gonna pass it to you guys to pick up the baton.
Yeah, I love this question because I think about it a lot personally, but I haven't gotten to have this conversation with a lot of people. Not a lot of people are asking good questions like this. Um, for me, what comes to mind is that this practice helps me get really clear with what I believe and what I feel is true, and allows me to make offerings, do rituals, create experiences that, though they might not be seen by others, and though they might not be even known as to like how this intersects with that they are kind of standing as pillars of strength in the community, that they're standing as spiritual frequencies that are sent out into the channels, for people to resource from, like drinks of the water. I find that when I'm overwhelmed with what's happening in the world, and there's a lot of differencing of opinion on the internet, that coming to my practice and sitting on my altar and lighting some smoke and offering to clarity and getting to take some time with my cards, looking at the different perspectives of the situation so I can get grounded in truly what I feel is um, resourceful for the future as it moves through me, makes me feel comfortable showing up and feeling safe, channeling the transmissions and staying in the spiritual realm, knowing that it's dropping down into tangible construction and activation and activities that people can use to make their homes, their lives, themselves, and their world a better place. And I think too, it's all of us have a lot of connections to the things going on in the world and the systemic collapse and the many materials that are kind of just like laying out here ready to be built into something new. And I think we all have our own individual roles to play in putting those pieces together. And I don't always know what my role is until I'm sitting in spaces like this, having conversations with community, sharing the messages coming through in the cards, understanding the greater spiritual context of what we're seeing happening in material form on the ground floor. It allows, at least for me, that bridge really helps for me to exchange the resources between these realms in a good way so that I'm not wasting, abusing, really, so I can recycle and reuse the things that are being destructed, that are being composted, and turning them into fertilizer to grow gardens of new nutritious energy for the people that are coming into the future. I don't know, it's a big question, and I feel so much energy in it, and I want to give it justice. And also, I can only say that like it just helps me be a better person so I can show up to people that are in pain, or that also want to be a leader for a new way, and meet them where they're at.
I also feel, and you're speaking this so powerfully, the both of you are, it's a revolutionary act to be so connected to yourself, to your soul, to your psychic gifts, to your intuition, to your body, to your emotions, to your mental state. Like, it is a revolutionary act. There has been decades and decades and decades of things that have tried to oppress our literal senses of just being in a body. So, you being with yourself and being so connected is a revolutionary act in itself. And then to speak about it, to channel it, to let it be known, to share about it is so, so revolutionary. And I feel like just walking, especially in the time that we're in right now, where we literally have, I mean, there's benefits to technology and there are shadow aspects to technology, right? We are in a time and an era where there are literal robots, there is AI technology where people are going and they're typing in questions and they're getting answers from a literal robot. that is going to become extremely destructive. But imagine if you are so tapped into your own intuition, your ancestors, your guides, fuck all that technology. You're not going to need any of that. Like, you have it all right here. And that's how we create new earth. It's through our humanness. It's not about us leaving, right? It's about us channeling through and being in our human and being on this plane to really create the change and be in our human hearts, our human minds, our human bodies. So, doing any of this work is, to me, a revolutionary act. It's creating, and when I say new earth, like, it's ancient earth. New earth is ancient earth, like how we were connected to the earth before all of these technological advances and all these different things, again, that have its benefits, but everything has a shadow aspect to it. And if we're not in check with that, that's when things start to get like absolutely insane. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I love this idea you bring up about like the externalization of our spiritual gifts in a sense of like you know, let's say the plane was invented so that we don't have to do these super long pilgrimages. You know, the AI was created because, you know, Google is not the best search engine. Whether you use it as a search engine or you use it to give you birth chart readings or if you use it for whatever reason. But, you know, this externalization of our own capabilities is kind of like what I feel like technology is and what it's like moving more into. Even, you know, autonomous vehicles. It's like, I think I can drive. I think I'm good, you know, but some people can't, you know, some people would really beneficial for them to be able to just press a button and go somewhere. So I think for the future, it's kind of understanding that it's an orchestra of many different people's needs and the way that we show up in our medicine and the things that we choose to externalize, the things that we choose to keep. um, you know, it's our decision, I guess. But I think overall, this question really brings up for me like this idea of like, how do I want to show up? What do I want to create in order to help the world, in order to help like this these times of oppression, of separation? Like, how do I want to bring people together? And yeah, that's what I'm doing. Thanks for joining. um, our next question is from Christina. For anyone who is comfortable to share, my question is, what helps you tune into your higher awareness or intuitive gifts? Is it a ritual or a practice? I'm gonna intentionally pass this to Eliana to start, if you're okay with receiving that.
I'd love to. Thank you. Yeah, I was just immediately gonna grab my stack of cards and say that I train. Like I train with tools that help me to understand the visions or ideas or intuitions that I'm getting to say like this is what I'm feeling and here's like a nice tangible representation of that. And then I work with that tangible representation in the real world by continuing to excavate those images or those messages or those words and keep walking with them and working with them and see how they kind of unfold in my life. I think that it's a continual practice, and I would say probably the simplest answer to that is you have an intuitive hit on something and you follow through. And you have another intuitive hit on something and you follow through and you keep strengthening that muscle. So eventually you're like just, you know, big old strong man over here just picking up whatever life has to offer you. And you know that your intuition is just born and bred inside of your body, guiding you through each step of the way. But for me, and like I love to like bring in human design and some of these systems that help us to look at these things. In human design, there's a way that we kind of like see and interpret the sensations of our reality, and mine is external visions. So having something that I can look at, having a picture, having words that I can read, having something that is outside of me to help me confirm what I feel like is happening inside of me is key. So it's like go to a divinator, right? Have them confirm what's already coming up inside of you. Be like, that's the sensation, that's the feeling, confirm this is true. It's being reflected back to me in this way, that way, whatever way, shape, and form. And then I'm going to move from there. And you start to kind of build a life where the intuition is living and breathing in your daily schedule. The whole way you flow throughout your business, your work, your walk in the world is built on intuition. It's built on this inner wisdom rising up inside of you, helping you construct life from the inside out rather than how society's always told us we have to construct our life, which is from the outside in.
Mic drop. The mic has been dropped. I think for me, thank you. Ooh, yes. Um, yeah, I think for me, like something that Riona mentioned a little bit earlier is that like kind of that present state of like being super, super present and doing practices that help me be really, really present helps my ears be a little bit more sensitive. For me, that has been like Kundalini yoga, or it has simply been focusing on the breath. When the breath goes into the nose, focus on the hairs and the movement or the sensation inside of the nose. And as you kind of focus on one thing while you're meditating, it brings you into a super present state because your mind is kind of training itself to be more and more present with one specific thing. I think social media and multitasking takes us out of that present state, and we're a little bit too multidimensional. Sometimes we have to be singular dimensional, or you know what I mean. Um, but yeah, I guess that's what I would say. And I think that's a great pathway for me.
I love all of these practices that y'all are sharing, and I would echo all of them. I've been using all of them, and I would just say, Christina, for you, whatever practice you just are drawn to, like if you're like, I want to go to a yoga class, like I'm craving, my body's craving it, like go. If you're feeling like, "Oh my gosh, I just would love to get an oracle deck and just play and like explore what that would be like," get the deck. Like anything that almost like your inner child is excited about, you're curious, you're lit up about, follow that, and that is going to just continue to open more and more and more things up for you, and that's where your unique intuition and psychic language will come online because you have been following like these breadcrumbs of excitement and curiosity that help bring to life the way that you'll experience your intuition and psychic gifts. So I would even just do a little bit of reflection of practices that like are already in your life that you love, that you maybe want to invest more time and energy into, and just become like just lovingly devoted to them because you are enjoying it and it's bringing you life to your life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, this 2 hours went by so fast. I think we time traveled. But I would love to end with asking our guests if there's anything about this process like that you'd like to share. What was it like for you in terms of like preparing for it? When I first invited you, did you feel something come up? Um, is there some type of intuitive hit? Anything that you really want to share about the kind of preparation of this process and how it was for you to kind of allow everyone to receive a little bit of a flavor, like behind the scenes for you? And we'll start with Riona. Thanks.
This was such a beautiful call home for me. I'm currently on sabbatical right now from any of my offerings. I'm just taking care of myself. I'm in my own practices as I'm in this chapter of my life, and I was actually talking to my mom, and I was expressing to her, I just was like, I don't know how to get back to this work that I've built for years and years and years. And she just was like, it's going to come back and just trust that. And it was this summit that, Horus reaching his hand out to me, and then everybody in our Wisdom Keeper community reaching their hands out to me and just being like, come on, like, come and take the first step with us. So this feels like coming home. It feels like a reawakening again. And it feels like the medicine that I really need right now. And so as much as I have given to this space, like I've received so much more. Like I've received so much more. And it's been so gentle and loving. And I'm just like I said earlier, like I'm really trusting the stepping stones in front of me and where the path is leading me. And I know that this is such a big one. So yeah, it's definitely still marinating and it's still coming to life for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you. So proud of you. How about you, Eliana?
Yeah, it was such a quick yes for me. The way that Horace and I met was just magical. The way that our lives have continued to weave has been super magical. And so when he invited me into this beautiful group of creators, like collectively collaborating on this big transmission that we're dropping into the field, it was yeah, it was just such an easy place for me to come and join the circle, and I love to, like, sit and connect with, like, the spirit of an offering. That's, like, a big part of my work, so I sat with the spirit of wisdom keepers before this, and I just saw us all in this, like, rock hall quarry and this big stone table, and all of us just gathered around. It just feels, like, deep and rooted and ancient, and people from so many different backgrounds and channels of experience coming together to share their wisdom drop. It's Aquarian technology to me. Like this is the future, just people getting to show up just as they are with their stories in tow and having that be enough. So I think that's such a beautiful message you're giving to all of us, both those of us that are guests and those of us that are joining to receive. Um, is that yeah, the wisdom lives here, and I'm just so honored to be able to be here with you all.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I love you both so much. We have come to the end of this right on time, right on the dot. I love it. I love when spirit works in that way. The timekeepers are working for us. Um, yeah, I didn't really think about how I wanted to end this beautiful container. But I am very, very glad to be in this life with Eliana and Riona. I learned so much from them all the time through their presence online, through their presence in my physical life, via text, all of the things, just tending to our relationships together. So, just thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and for offering your wisdom codes for collective liberation and the liberation of ourselves. And it is through kind of this free expression of allowing ourselves to share that we allow others to be more free as well. In a sense, we're mirroring that for them. So thank you all so much for joining today. I hope you take this beautiful energy into the rest of your week. If you'll back tomorrow, we'll see you tomorrow. This journey is just beginning. It's just deepened so much already. So I'm just so grateful for you all. And if you have any questions, have my email. If you need anything, just reach out to any of us. So yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.